Welcome everybody, my name is Trex and we're back at it again. On this video, we're going to be showcasing the top performing mages classes in your world. And like I always say, remember that these builds are pretty much for everything except for wars. If you bring one of these builds into the war scene and you find success with it, well, congratulations. Just know that these builds are not really intended for wars. This is for pretty much everything else in the game. And without making this any longer, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And as always, we're gonna come to New World Champ to find these builds. The three builds that we're going to be talking today, like I said, they're going to be magical. So we're gonna go ahead and head to the PvP build. We're gonna go to the magical category, and this is where you're going to find these builds. The three builds that we're going to be talking about today. One is going to be the Deep Freeze. This one is Ice Gauntlet and Void Gauntlet. The other one that we're going to be talking about is going to be Frostbite. This one is your traditional Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet. And the third one that we're going to be talking about is going to be the Shuriken Heals God Mage, which again, this is Fire Staff and Blunderbuss. And I'm sure that you guys are not surprised to find Fire Staff and Blunderbuss as one of the top performing mages classes for Season 4 in New World. And the first build that we're going to be showcasing is going to be the Deep Freeze. The Deep Freeze has quickly become my favorite mage build to play in Season 4, and this build is phenomenally fun. It is extremely powerful, and actually this build right now is countering the entire meta. The entire heavy melee meta is 120% countered by this build. There's not a melee build in this game. There's not a heavy melee build, light or medium melee build that can beat this build. The only melee build that can make this build a little bit like, oh, be careful, it's like a hatchet player if they use in Berserk, because Berserk will go right through your combo, and I will show you guys what I mean by that. So again, this build is called the Deep Freeze. We're going to be utilizing 350 intelligence, 200 constitution, and 25 focus for that cooldown reduction. Of course, as you guys can see on the build, we're going to be using the Nimble Leather Code. We want as much cooldown reduction as we possibly can have. So we're going to go with a Nimble Leather Code. We're going to have obviously 4 refreshings, right? So 1 refreshing, 2 refreshing, 3 refreshing, and if you can put another refreshing on the gear, that's fine. If you don't want to sacrifice a gear perk for refreshing, then you can go ahead and slap that refreshing in one of your accessories, right? So you can see, we're going to be using Unending Thought, of course, Slowing Tether, Empowering Ice Spike, and Slowing Tether is a great tool to catch the enemies whenever they're running away, or simply slow them down whenever they're fighting you face to face. Unending Thought is almost a mandatory perk if you're going to be playing with Ice Gauntlet and Blizzard, of course. And Ice Spike is a very nice little bump in damage because we are going to be rooting the enemy quite often with this build. All right, on the shoes, we're going to be using the Emperor Show embroidered shoes, but you can use whatever you want as long as you can achieve the 4 refreshing and maybe freedom. The reason why I'm asking for you to wear freedom is because this build, you're going to be face to face with the enemy many times. And remember, like I said, this build is a main melee counter. And what do melees have? Well, melees have a lot of CCs, right? You don't want to get caught by like a shockwave, by like a shield bash, and just sit it there in a full duration. So since we're going to be close and personal to the enemy and we're going to be spamming abilities non-stop, the best 2 perks for these builds are going to be refreshing and freedom. Whenever you are done with the weapon perks, then as the last remaining perk in there, you can go for like ice harnessing, you can go for health. And remember that on the pants, we're always going to go for Shuriken Heals. As for the bottom row right here, we're 100% going to be utilizing the Deep Freeze. This one is a no-brainer. This Ice Gauntlet is extremely powerful and is unbelievably good. All right, since we're going to be using Windshield with this build, we're going to put on Broken Winds on the Deep Freeze. We're going to slap a Malachite in there, of course, because the enemy is going to be pretty much CC'd the entire time. For the Void Gauntlet, we're going to be using Hades Fury. If you guys don't know where to obtain Hades Fury, I will have a video link to this video down below that I will actually be showcasing all of the playstyle for all of these builds. And on the Deep Freeze build, I actually show you where to find the Hades Fury, but you could also go to New World Database, look up for Hades Fury, and you can find it rather easily there. This Void Gauntlet comes with intelligence, so it's amazing. And it also comes with Putrefying Scream and Keen, which it makes this Void Gauntlet extremely beast for pretty much every single one of the scenarios in New World. We're going to apply play crits. I understand that the anti-heal cap is only 50%, and having 43% over here and 24% over here obviously is going to overlap, But the thing is that while we're not hitting the enemy with Putrefying Scream, we could be hitting the enemy with Slowing Tether. Slowing Tether can crit, and Slowing Tether can still apply the play crits. Orb of Decay, it's 2 hits, very high crit chance. We can still crit from a distance and apply the anti-heal from a distance, even if we're not melee range from the enemy, or even if we miss the Putrefying Scream, right? The Corrupt Progenitor Amulet, this one is a no-brainer. I love using this. For the ring, we're going to be using the Champion's Ring and the Heavy E-Ring over here. This is how it's going to look for the skill build. We're going to be using the Brutal Heart Rune of the Grasping Bind because once more, the freeze increases the damage of both your weapons on rooted, chilled, or frozen enemy, right? And on top of that, the Ice Spike is 17% more damage on rooted foes. So this is, we're going to go with that Heart Rune. This is how it's going to look for the Void Gauntlet. We're going to be looking to use the Putrefying Scream is slowing, the tethers and Orb of Decay. We're not going to be using Voracious Blade because the main weapon for this build is going to be the Ice Gauntlet. We're not going to be using Oblivion because this build, you're going to be on the move most of the time. Plus, you could use Oblivion and replace, Tethers. Tether is more like single target oriented. Oblivion is more group AoE utility oriented, right? Orb of Decay is a no-brainer. We're always going to utilize that one. And Rupture ain't really that effective for this build because a lot of the Ice Gauntlet's abilities right here are not really hits. Like Blizzard is not a hit and Windshield is not a hit. So only Ice Spike will be applying slowing. Rupture. Plus, Rupture is better utilized with something like Void Blade. For the Ice Gauntlet, this is how it's gonna go. We're gonna go for the Spike, the Blizzard, of course. We're gonna go with the Windshield. And we're gonna make our way down here to Refreshing Frost. This is mandatory for this build to work. Without Refreshing Frost, this build cannot work. And this build, you guys will soon realize that this build is just a freaking machine, a powerhouse. It's a never-ending ability spawn. And I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the rotation so you guys can see how this build performs. And the combo for this build is gonna go something like this. First of all, the Ice Gauntlet is going to be our primary weapon, right? The Void Gauntlet is going to be our supporting weapon. And we're going to be using the Void Gauntlet to rend the enemy and apply that tether. So if you start the fight from a distance, ideally you want to start the fight with an Orb of Decay and then use like tether. And whenever you're close to the enemy, you utilize the Scream, right? This will give you the opportunity to rend the enemy tremendously. And if you do apply that tether, if you are to connect that tether with the enemy, it's pretty much a game set because you can close in and just beat the living hell out of them. Because they're 20% weak and you're 20% in power and you're just going to destroy them, right? So whenever you're from a distance, again, the Orb of Decay and Tethers, that is going to be your bread and butter right there. Then whenever you get close to the enemy, you're going to hit them with a Void Gauntlet. After you hit them with a Void Gauntlet, Scream, if you want to hit one tap of mana, that is completely okay. And now I'm going to show you guys how the rotation is going to go for the Ice Gauntlet. And the rotation for the Ice Gauntlet goes something like this. So you're going to use the Blizzard into an Ice Spike, into a Windshield. And as you guys can see, look at the cooldown of my Ice Spike. It's already. And then you're going to use another Blizzard into another Ice Spike, into another Windshield, into another Ice Spike, into another Blizzard, into another Windshield. And as you guys can see, the only limitation to this is actually your mana, right? Your mana is your only limitation. Now, we could be using the Grey Wizard hat so we can have an insane amount of mana. But since we are using this build in conjunction with the Void Gauntlet is a great tool to get our mana back. Plus, the thing is, by the time that you're using all of these ice abilities, your Void Gauntlet abilities will pretty much also be back as well. And I want you to do that. I want you to cycle between your Void Gauntlet and your Ice Gauntlet, your Void Gauntlet and your Ice Gauntlet. The reason why I want you to cycle through your Void Gauntlet and Ice Gauntlet, every time you cycle through your Void Gauntlet, you can use a little tap of mana regen right there instead of utilizing a mana potion, because the mana potion has a longer cooldown. It does give you your whole mana back. And if you are in a moment of like downtime where you're like kind of like resetting, then just go ahead and chug a mana potion. But you don't really need to with the Void Gauntlet, because the Void Gauntlet is phenomenal whenever you use all of the abilities to simply do like a little tap, and that thing has like no cooldown, right? Just the one thing is, if you are using it for mana, don't hold it, chat, okay? Please do not hold it, and like don't hold it like this, because if you were to hold it like this, it doesn't give you mana back every single time. It's actually better to use let me use the abilities right here. So if I were to hold it, look at the speed of mana, right? It does go up, but you are wasting time. It goes up pretty freaking fast, but you're just holding it there while being stuck in that animation and just being slowed down. So the way that I like to do it myself, and this is just a personal preference, I just like to do like a tap, stop, tap, stop, and tap, and stop. And I know that every single one of the tap is gonna give me mana. That way, I'm not just sitting there. On top of that, you can always do like a tap, roll into a tap, into another roll, into another tap. And that's gonna give you all your mana back, you know? Or you don't never have to do 3 taps. Actually, all you have to do, it realistically, in most scenario, is just 2 taps to get all your mana back. Like 1 and 2. And that's it. You have your whole stamina, your whole mana bar back. And you don't have to use a mana potion. On top of that, if we're going to be using this perk right here with the Void Gauntlet, this is the one time that I only recommend you holding it for a little bit instead of just a tap, because this remove a debuff that you have on you. So like a weaken, or like a bleed, or like a poison arrow, something like that. You just hold it there for like 0.7 seconds and you will get removed. You will get that dot removed. Another tip that I would like, I would like you guys to know, Jesus, is remember we're playing with Glimpse on the Void. And if you don't know what Glimpse of the Void is, basically whenever we hit an enemy with an ability, we get 1 stack of it. At 4 stack, the next heavy attack will give us all of our cooldowns back for the Void Gauntlet. And then you'll be like, well, Trick, that's kind of hard, right? Because we only have 3 abilities. Well, yes, but no. Because the Orb of Decay, if you explode it, and it counts as 2 hits. On top of that, this can be also utilized in AoE, meaning that if you hit 2 targets, you got 2 stacks instead of 1 stack. So you can get this very easy in clump fights, but you can also get it in a single target situation. For example, let's say that is the enemy that you're fighting right there, and you hit him with like the Orb of Decay, right? Feathers and Scream, and you can already see that I have 5 stack. I accidentally have 5 stacks instead of 4 because I hit the dummy to the left. And now if I hit the enemy with a heavy attack, then you see that it gives me my cooldowns back. Obviously, this has a 15-second cooldown from the moment of activation. So the moment that you get all of those cooldowns back, then you will start that 15-second cooldown. But this could be utilized very, very, very good if you're fighting against one enemy and you notice that you hit him with all 4 things. Let's say that the fight is started from this distance, right? You hit him with the Orb of Decay, then you hit him with the Tethers, you hit him with a Scream, and whenever you hit him with a Scream, and if you have 4 stacks, like myself right now I have 3, unfortunately I don't have 4, right? But if you were to have 4 stacks after that Scream, you can hit him with a heavy attack to get all your cooldowns back, and then you swap to the Ice Gauntlet, you do the rotation with the Ice Gauntlet, and the beautiful thing about this is that you have that Void Gauntlet back there in the background, ready to go whenever, ready to go with another Orb of Decay, with another Scream, with another Tether, so you can swap into the Ice Gauntlet and do your entire rotation back to back to back. Here's the Tethers, I mean the freaking spikes with the Ice Spike. And it's beautiful, boys. This is a beautiful, a crazy strong and powerful build. And like I said, this build will counter every melee class in the entire game without any problem, because together with the Tethers, together with the Scream and the Orb of Decay, right, you will never run out of mana for this situation. And if they are close to you, you simply hit them with a Storm, Ice Spike, and then Windshield. Windshield will push them back, push them back, push them back. And the thing is that you will basically have Windshield 100% of the time, as long as you're playing this the right way, right? Try not to go outside of the Blizzard, because if you go outside of the Blizzard and you use your abilities outside of the Blizzard, look how ruined your combo was. So you'll always be mindful of using the abilities on top of a frosted area. I cannot stress that enough. And always remember to utilize a Glimpse of the Void to the best of your ability, so you get your cooldowns back like such, right? Remember to use your right click on the Void Gauntlet to get your mana back, and just go ahead and out there and pump and destroy this heavy meta and destroy every melee player out there. Now, this build does has a downside, and the downside to this build, like I mentioned earlier, is Hatchet, because Hatchet can simply go right through your windshield because they have perma grid. And on top of that, all of your Screams and you know, and the Ice Spike Stagger, they can go right through that. The second downside to this build is gonna be something like a bow build, right? A bow build, if they are very strong with a bow, they can infinitely kite you, especially if you don't have Unending Thought, and that's why Unending Thought is very mandatory for this build. So if you hit them with a Blizzard, they're slow for a longer duration, and then if you hit them also with a slowing tether, that will be another slow. And the reason why I want you to go for slowing tether and the Unending Thought in this scenario is so you can catch up to the people that are able to kite you for very long durations. But those two are going to be the main downside to this build. But obviously, this is an MMO, it's a rock, paper, scissors situation. This build will defeat 99% of all of the melee players and the heavy meta that is happening right now. Sword and Shield gone, Great Sword gone, Spear gone, anything gone except for Hatchet in some situation. and again whenever you're fighting against bow. And that does it for the Void Gauntlet and the Ice Gauntlet build. Once more, if you guys want to know more in detail about this build, remember that I'm going to leave a link to a video guide explaining the entire build in depth with also some PvP montages in the description below. But that does it for this one. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one. But before we get into the next one, now let's talk about what type of gamer are you. If you have one hand like myself or you have a lot of free time, then go ahead and download Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends, I've actually played it a couple times on stream, and every single time that I play it, I have an insane blast. And the reason why is because he has hundreds and hundreds of champions, and he has all of your typical traditional races like the dwarf, elves, humans, and just big old monsters that you would love to have on your team. And since I have a broken hand, that means that I've been going to the hospital a lot in the past month, and while sitting there in the waiting room, Raid Shadow Legends actually been my salvation. And what I've been playing the most is this brand new mode called the Cursed City that came with the Christmas event. Now, the Cursed City is this big old map that you can see that has different cities. Now, in every single one of these cities, that you're going to be fighting a bunch of waves of monsters and do different missions, as you guys can see. There are different cities, and every single one of these cities, they have their own difficulty. And how it works is you want to defeat every boss in this city until you eventually obtain one of the keys. Once you have obtained the necessary amounts of keys, then you can go ahead and battle the main boss in the center. Before you battle the main boss in the center, you'll be encountering insane battles with other colossal bosses, but once you get to the final boss, nothing compares to that. This boss is insane. It is a tremendous difficult fight that takes a lot of understanding and dedication, and obviously depending how good your team is gonna be your experience. And if you want to tame this game serious, go ahead and download the game. You can use my link down below, or you can scan the QR code on top and you will get the Lightsworn hero. This hero will literally help you and give you so much power early on the game, making you have a much better and smoother experience while playing Raid Shadow Legends. I actually got this hero myself during my first playthrough, and it made my whole experience super smooth. So yes, like I said, if you guys want to play Raid Shadow Legends and experience the Cursed City and obtain the Lightsworn, go ahead and use my link down below or scan the QR code on the top. But let's go ahead and get back into the video. And the second build that we're going to be showcasing is going to be pretty similar to that one of the Void Gauntlet and Ice Gauntlet. But this one, instead of the Void Gauntlet, this one is going to be with the Fire Staff, right? This will be more or less your traditional fire mage, and your traditional mage, which is Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet. The only difference is here that we're going for that windshield instead of going with the Entomb. The Entomb will be the most traditional safe way to go. But with the Deep Freeze, like I was showing you guys, Deep Freeze has an insane amount of damage, especially with that windshield, like you guys saw in the previous build, like you guys saw in the previous build. And the windshield, for me, it's ridiculously powerful. And combining all of that with like the Fire Staff, so you can do like a burnout into a fireball, into a pillar of fire, into a blizzard, into an ice spike, into a windshield, into another blizzard, into another ice spike, right? So it's like a never ending. It's so much burst, so much sustained damage. And for all of that to happen, since we don't have the Void Gauntlet to suck our life away and give us a little bit of mana back, actually it's not a little bit, it's a big chunker of mana. And there's no time to stop in this build because you're not really like, like Tether, Orb of Decay, Extreme, suck a little bit of mana, health, get mana, swap to the Ice Gauntlet, right? It's not like that, because if you wanted to do all that with the Fire Staff and the Ice Gauntlet, you need to chug a mana potion in between, and it really ruins the entire rotation and combo. And since the mana potion have like a 10-second cooldown, you can actually run out of mana sooner than you are able to send all of these abilities out. What is going on, cat? Let me let my cat out. So, since we cannot use all of those abilities back to back, the way that we're gonna go for this one is gonna go with the Grizzard Way Hat. And what did I say? The Grizzard Way Hat? The Grey Wizard Hat, whatever it is. This hat is insanely good for this build because it gives you the opportunity to spam every single one of those abilities. If you were not to use the Grizzard Way Hat, you will use a burnout into a fireball into a pillar of fire, and that will leave you around 30 mana. And then whenever you swap to the Ice Gauntlet and you utilize Blizzard, at that moment you will be completely out of mana, maybe like 10 mana, 15 mana, which is barely enough to use your ice pack and your wind shield, which you still have there. And the thing is, remember, since we're going to be using all of this cooldown reduction, that means that you're not just going to use a blizzard into an ice pack into a wind shield. You're going to use a blizzard into an ice pack into a wind shield, into another blizzard, into another ice pack, into another wind shield. And then the fire staff also has like the fireball and the pillar of fire coming back, because those have relatively low cooldown, one being 10 seconds and the other one being 15 at base. But obviously, since we're going to be having 25 focus, and for refreshing, the cooldown of refreshing pillar of fire is going to be something like 8 seconds, and fireball is going to be something like 13 seconds. So anyways, yes, I am 150,000% recommending the Great Wizard Hat for this build. And if you don't use the Great Wizard Hat, you will soon find out that you will be running out of mana in almost every single one of your rotation. It's very, very, very bad, because it's a lot of downtime that, you know, whenever you're drinking your mana potion. And you don't want to stop. You really don't want to stop, because you want to pump, and just never stop pumping with this build. Right, we're gonna go with the 350 intelligence, 200 constitution, 25 focus, 25 dexterity. Right, the great thing about the Great Wizard Hat is that it's not magnification, it's actually intelligence, and it gives you 45 intelligence instead of a 32, which that's what a normal piece of armor does. So you can even have a little bit more intelligence past the 350 point. For the chest piece right here, Ice Harnessing, Unending Thaw, and Ice Harnessing, Refreshing, Pillar of Fire, Shuriken Energy, and Power, and Ice Fire, Refreshing Health, Ice Harnessing. As you guys can see, we were able to put a little bit more Ice Harnessing on our gear here, simply because we don't need slowing tether in the gear, so we can slap another Ice Harnessing in there. We're gonna be frozen on every single one of our piece of armors, because we're actually going to be turning the fire staff into ice damage. That is the best way to go around this. That is for the maximum amounts of damage, and plus a couple of people here and there, they're using still fire protection only, and no one is playing with ice protection only. All right, the same accessories, we're gonna be using the Champion's Ring with ice damage as well, just like the previous build. And this is pretty much the life loop instead of the heavy earring. We're going to once again use the vines. This is how the build is gonna look for the fire staff. Right, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be going with Fireball, Pillar of Fire, and Burnout. As you guys notice, I put the Arsenal Advantage right here for the Pillar of Fire to get that extra mana back in case you are a little bit from the distance, and you're just able to get some of the mana back, and that way you will never run out of mana. And but I mean, we still have the Great Wizard Hat, so you don't have to worry about it. If you want to remove this one and maybe go with Flare for more basic attack AoE, or maybe go for Clear Mind over here, that it gives you 5% extra more damage whenever you haven't taken damage for 3 seconds. It will happen every so often, not very often, but it will still happen. Or you could go for Trial of Fire God, which it will add a little bit of damage whenever you go in with a Burnout, Fireball, and Pillar of Fire. The downside to that is that you're going to be swapping out of the Fire Staff pretty much immediately as soon as you're done using the fireballs, the fire staff abilities, because remember, the main weapon of this build is going to be the Ice Gauntlet, right? You're going to be using the fire staff as you just like pump, and then you're going to swap onto the Ice Gauntlet, and the Ice Gauntlet will be your primary weapon for most of the times, simply because, again, we are going for that deep freeze. And well, you guys saw how it was with the previous build. Again, the build for the Ice Gauntlet is going to be relatively the same. Nothing changes here, because this is the build that you need for you to play with the Deep Freeze with these 3 abilities. And with that being said, now let's go ahead and show you guys the playstyle of this build. This is essentially the same exact thing that we were doing with the Ice Gauntlet and Void Gauntlet, except that now we are having a second very offensive weapon, which is the Fire Staff, which is going to give us a lot more burst. The Void Gauntlet is a lot of sustain and utility, right? The Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet is more single target and just more damage oriented than the Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet, but it's also played in a different way. This build can also counter the melee class in a very, very easy way. Not as easy because we don't have the tethers and we don't have the screen, right? The tether goes right through shields. The Orb of Decay goes right through shield. Unfortunately, we don't have those things with the Fire Staff. But here we go. I'm going to show you guys how it goes and how it looks. So for the Fire Staff and the Ice Gauntlet, once again, the Ice Gauntlet is going to be our primary weapon. It's going to be utilized after we utilize the Fire Staff arsenal, So if the fight is a little bit far from you, you can simply stake from the far, just using the blizzard from a distance. And the beautiful thing is, remember, since we're going to be using deep freeze, meaning that if you hit an enemy with a blizzard, all of the damage of your fire staff will be empowered by 15%. So if you use a blizzard from the distance, then your fireballs and your filler fire will be empowered by 15%, being a very, very good tool if you want to just pump damage from a distance as a artillery mage. But that is not what we're doing in this case. Also, if you guys notice, we have 200 mana because obviously we're using the Great Wizard hat like I told you guys we would. Because if we were not to use the Great Wizard hat, we would run out of mana incredibly fast. So the combo for this build will go something like this. We're going to use a Burnout into a Fireball into a Pillar of Fire. We're going to swap into the Ice Gauntlet, use a Blizzard, use an Ice Bite, then use a Windshield, and rinse and repeat, alright? So it's going to go something like this. We're going to be using a Burnout into a Fireball, into a Pillar of Fire, swap to the Ice Gauntlet, do a Blizzard, did an Ice Spike, and then do a Windshield, right? And you can see the cooldown of my Ice Spike is about to come, and the cooldown of the Blizzard is already there. The only difference in that you notice is the cooldown of the Ice Spike is not as dramatic as it was with the Void Gauntlet Ice Gauntlet, is because we had so much more cooldown with the Nimble chest, right? With the chest piece. But since the Fire Staff, I was mentioning earlier, has very good cooldowns, you don't have to sit with the Ice Gauntlet for 90% of the fight, and you can actually cycle between the Fire Staff and the Ice Gauntlet to just pump. Now, as you guys can, I'm gonna show you guys the rotation. Once again, it's gonna be a Burnout into a Fireball, into a Pillar of Fire, swap to the Ice Gauntlet. We do a Blizzard into an Ice Spike, into a Windshield, right? Then we're gonna do another Ice Spike, another Blizzard, and look at the cooldown. So the Fire Staff, Pillar of Fire is already there, Fireball is already there. And if we want to get out of that situation with the Burnout, we also can. This is an incredibly fun, versatile build. It has the good thing that you can fire from a little bit of distance, right? As opposed to with the Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet, that is most of the time melee range to close range, right? I have an archer sitting in the back. Who's that guy? Sodius. I have no interest in fighting this individual. I'm recording a video right now, but I'm gonna try to give the best of my abilities. I'm actually going to fight this guy. I am not really buffed, right? This dude stole my mug. I don't know what that means. Right, we're going in there. We're gonna hit him with that. Hit him with a beautiful Ice Spike. Then we're gonna follow that with a Windshield. Try to use a Flash right me. Fireball into a Pillar of Fire. He's basically dead right here. Put a Windshield. Boom! Alright, he's there with his basic. I missed it because I have one hand. As you guys know, that was a one-hand PvP. You guys can see how powerful this build is. I didn't think there was going to be a second archer. But, well, you guys see how beautiful this build performed, right? Obviously, if you were to have two hands and you were fighting against one player, maybe you would have done phenomenally. I was not expecting the second guy from behind. Once more, I'm not even buffed. My attributes are all wrong. But as you guys can see, you can perform with this build if you are very good with it. And that was pretty much it for the rotation of that build. The thing that I can show you now, if you are kind of like questioning, well, Trick, why the hell do you want to use the Great Wizard hat? I still don't understand it. Well, it's simply because look at all this, right? You can do a Burnout, right? Into a Fireball, into a Pillar of Fire, into a Blizzard, into an Ice Spike, into a Windshield, and look how much mana you still have. You still have 100 mana, right? And as you guys can see, that combo right there used about 100 mana. That if you were to not have the Great Wizard hat, you would have basically run out of mana and you would have not been able to use the next rotation, and now you had to stop to drink a mana potion. And how does that look? I'm gonna show you right now. How will that combo look without the Great Wizard hat? Here we go. Burnout into a Fireball, into a Pillar of Fire, into a Blizzard, and look, you see, I don't have mana now. So now I need to stop my whole fight, my whole combo, my whole rotation, so I can show a mana potion, so I can use one ability, which is the Windshield of the Ice Spike, completely ruining your momentum, completely ruining your combo, and making the fight a lot more, much slower than what it should have been, because that is what you wouldn't want with this build. You don't want to stop. You don't want to stop using Windshield, Ice Spikes, and Blizzard, Fireballs, and Pillar of Fires, and Burnout. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Does it for this build. Now I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the next and last build. And now that we are done with that one, in which I hope you liked it. By the way, if you guys still watching until this point and you are enjoying the content and this is pretty good for you, like you're getting something out of this, don't forget to sub, all right? Like, hit that freaking, what color button is it? Listen, just sub, man. Sub, it really helps the channel, obviously, to get better deals and stuff like that. And plus, we want this channel to grow, right? So please don't forget to sub. And also share with your friends if they want to play some magical classes or whatever. Anyways, here's the last class. The last class that we're going to be talking about, it used to be the most famous / infamous at the beginning of Season 3. A lot of people still have nightmares and flashback about this class. This class is already being nerfed a couple of times. It's gonna be getting nerfed pretty soon once more, and I'm pretty sure you guys know what that class is, and that class is going to be the Fire Stab and Blunderbuss. Now, since you guys know, as the creator of the Fire Stab and Blunderbuss, you guys know that I have different builds, I have different ways that I play with it, and you guys can find 2 Fire Stab Blunderbuss builds right here in New World Champ. One is gonna call the Shuriken Heal Gun Mage. This one is the one that I actually recommend the majority of the players that want to play with Fire Stab Blunderbuss for the first time, right? And you are not like very experienced into PvP. If you are more advanced into PvP and you want to play with a low constitution build, then you will play with the Pest Gun Mage. This one is my favorite build, and as you can see, the difference between this build and the other one is one of these builds uses 200 strength for maximum Blunderbuss burst and damage and 100 constitution, while the other build simply uses 200 constitutions and puts every single other point into intelligence, getting maximum damage with the Fire Staff while also having a very good survivability and sustained damage. For this build, I'm going to be showcasing the Shuriken Heal Gun Mage because, again, it's a more of a beginner friendly. But if you want to dive deep into getting the best possible assassination with the Blunderbuss, then I will recommend that you go for the Pest Gun Mage, or you could always drop by my stream. But also remember, I have a YouTube video about this build on the section down below that you can find more about that. And I will also leave, you know, the little square box video at the end of this video, so you can click on that one, which is going to be the recommended video after this video. Anyways, we're going to jump into the Blunderbuss and Fire Staff here. For the Blunderbuss and Fire Staff, we're going to go for that 350 intelligence, 200 constitution, 25 focus. Any other remaining point that you have, you can slap it into intelligence. So probably you have like 380 or how many more points you have. As you see right here, we're not going to be using the Attuned Leather Pants because we are prioritizing survivability. And since we're not using Attuned Leather Pants, that means that we're going to have a little bit less damage because the Attuned Leather Pants give us a couple of attributes that we can utilize to give us the most and better possible damage for the Pest Gun Mage. But since we don't have the Attuned Leather Pants, we're going to be utilizing the Tumbler Shoes. And the Tumbler Shoes, since it gives us 15% empowerment whenever we dodge an attack on top of the fortifications and the heals, it's a no-brainer to put the Tumbler Shoes on a build that is not so much about burst and it's more about sustained damage and survivability. So yes, the Tumbler Shoes, we're going to be using the Hardy Pants that come from Inead. We're going to be using the Emperor Show embroidered chest piece over here, and then you're going to either craft yourself or buy it out of the marketplace, the headpiece and the gloves. For the weapons, we're going to be using Pestilence. We're going to be using a gem slot on Pestilence as the last socket. As the last perk. You're going to slap Ignited in there. For the Fire Staff, in Season 4, as of now, we're still going to be playing with Empower Fireball, Play Crits, and a Gracious Punishment. This is, as of now, a super base of Fire Staff. We don't really know exactly how much Fireball is going to be getting, how much is going to be getting nerfed in like season 5 right around the corner. But even though if it get nerfed, if it is not more than 10%, then Empower Fireball is still going to be our best perk. If it is more than 10-15%, then we might be looking into another perk, but we probably might have no choice. For the accessories, this is what I'm recommending. I'm still recommending Ankh. The reason that I'm recommending Ankh is because with this build, we're going to be playing with Healthy Toes, and you guys know that Healthy Toes is still empowered by Ankh. We're going to be playing with Shuriken Heals in our gear. As you can see, we're going to slap actually 2 Invigorateds in there because the Invigorated is very good to keep ourselves alive with our Shuriken Heals. It is beautiful to use Invigorated. On top of that, Invigorated helps you with Exhaust, Rend, Weakens, and Anti-Heal. It's a very well-rounded perk. I will say it's probably superior than Health in pretty much every situation, but it's up to your play style. For the Hard Rune over here, we're going to be using the Storm Form. Again, survivability and sustain. For the fire stab build, this is how it's going to look. We're going to go with the flamethrower, fireball, and burnout. The reason why we're going to go with the flamethrower is because since the blunderbuss has great burst but doesn't have the best of sustained damage, that's where the flamethrower is going to come in. All right, the flamethrower is going to be our bread and butter for sustained damage. Whenever we use the blunderbuss ability, then we're gonna and we have nothing to use, then we use the flamethrower. If you have been given the opportunity to use flamethrower without having to use the blunderbuss ability, then use flamethrower, and then whenever the enemy drops like below 60%, you swap to the blunderbuss and you burst them down, right? And that is, the flamethrower is going to be super fundamental for this build. You can utilize this build with Pillar of Fire and take a more safer approach, but my favorite as far, and the one that I find the most success for this build, is going to be with the flamethrower, because again, you're going to find a lot of gaps and a lot of downtime with this build after you utilize your Splitting Grenade, Shrapnel Blast, and Net Shot, Fireball. And now for like the next 10 plus seconds, you have absolutely no abilities to use to do a good sustained amount of damage other than your basic attack and flamethrower. The mage's basic attacks are pretty doo-doo, so I'd rather stick with the flamethrower, do sustained damage. Just know that the flamethrower will put you in a lot of predictable positions, but we're playing with blunderbuss, which is already pretty close range, so you always will be pretty much at the range of the flamethrower. And this is the builds for the blunderbuss. All right, this is the main build that I recommend with the shuriken, with the Splitting Grenades, Shrapnel Blast, and Net Shot. But if you feel like you have more success with the Blast Shot, this is how the build will look with the Blast Shot right here. So this one is more for AoE. As you guys can see right here, we're using Double Down. If you want more sustained damage, you will go for Double Down. If you want more burst damage, then you will go for Unload. This one is the one that I go for main burst build, right? For the main burst. This one is the one that I go for main burst, single target, in case that I want to kill one specific target. That way I hit them with a Blast Shot and then I can unload on them. And this one is going to be your pretty much all well-rounded scenarios, because with a Double Down, you can still get 2 net shots. You're not going to be doing a lot of damage with a net shot because we're not going to go with Barb Netting, but it still is a pretty good sustained amount of damage. It's not a high possible burst, but again, this is not a highest possible burst build. This is a well-rounded build. Good survivability, good mobility, good damage and sustain. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Shuriken Heal Gun Mage. And now I'm gonna show you guys the play style. And the rotation for this build is gonna go something as follows. By the way, just a reminder, I have a full video guide about this specific build, all right? You just go ahead and check it. If this is not enough explanation, because I don't want to make this too long, remember that I have a full video guide about that, about all of these 3 builds on my YouTube channel, so go ahead and check it out. But anyways, so for this build is you pretty much want to start the fight with like a fireball, always from a distance, right? Either force that roll or just hit them with a fireball. That one is a no-brainer, right? Just use it on cooldown. Then you want to use a net shot, right? The net shot is always, whenever you're able to land that net shot, go ahead and land it. If you land the net shot from a distance, again, this is all from a distance, right? This is not a close quarter combat. We're going to get to the close quarter combat later. So again, it's going to be a fireball into a net shot. If you hit the enemy with a net shot, then throw a Splitting Grenade on top of them, and they have 2 choices. Either they get hit by the Splitting Grenade, or they roll the Splitting Grenade. At this moment, either they get hit by the fireball or they roll the fireball, all right? If they roll the fireball, then the net shot is probably going to be an easy hit because they're not going to roll back to back. And then if you hit them with a net shot, now they're sitting at around 60 stamina, meaning that if you use the Splitting Grenades right after that net shot, now they're forced to either roll one more time and be close to 20-30 stamina, and they are exhausted because of the net shot, and that is when you're going to close in with the burnout, right? So the rotation from a long range build fight, it will be something like this. Then use the Splitting Grenade, then close in with a burnout if they use that roll, right? If they use that second roll on the Splitting Grenade, close in with a burnout, because they're very low stamina, meaning that if whenever you close in, they need to use their last roll to avoid the burnout. And if they don't roll the burnout, then they're going to get massive damage, and then you're going to simply swap to the blunderbuss and proceed to do the Shrapnel Blast, all right? Basic attack, Shrapnel Blast, always, okay? So that is the rotation, and pretty much your bread and butter from afar. Start with a fireball, right? Net shot, Splitting Grenade from a distance. Then go into a burnout, into like flamethrower if you see fit, and then into a basic attack, Shrapnel Blast, and get out of that situation with a net shot backwards or like a roll backwards. So that right there is kind of like a pretty good rotation for a lot of the scenarios, especially if the enemy's not paying attention. If the enemy's fighting somebody else, then that's going to be very good because your fireball most likely is going to hit. Your net shot most likely is going to hit. Your splitting grenade is going to put them in a very nasty, dirty situation. If you use the burnout and you left them with like 20% HP, then swap to the blunderbuss and do the basic attack Shrine Blast. Once again, I have to do all of these things with my left hand because of my broken right hand, all right? But remember, always before doing a blunderbuss ability, do basic attack ability instead of doing ability and basic attack. And what I mean by that, do basic attack net shot or do basic attack Shrine Blast. I didn't do a basic attack there because I didn't have any bullet. But look at the difference on using a basic attack before and after an ability. So once again, this is basic attack net shot and basic attack Shrine Blast. And now I will show you guys how it is if you were to do it the other way. Ability and basic attack, ability and basic attack, and you will see how much more slower it is. So net shot, basic attack, Shrine, basic attack. Because you have to wait for the entire ability animation for you to be able to send that basic attack. If you do it the other way, again, basic attack Shrine, basic attack net shot. And that right there could mean 9 a day between a good blunderbuss player and a bad blunderbuss player. Don't go around just you know, like that's why we have the blunderbuss. That's why we have the flamethrower, right? The only way that you will do a if it's the enemy is around this distance and you have absolutely nothing. You don't have fireball, you don't have a net shot, and you can just like we're trying to just take them down, probably to finish them off, or maybe because they're running away from you. And make sure that you do those sounds. If you don't do those sounds, the damage won't be there, right? Make sure. And if the enemy is like close range from you, then it will be a little bit different. If the enemy is a little bit close range from you, do you start the fight with a splitting grenade, basic attack Shrine Blast, then roll into a basic attack net shot to get away from the enemy. Now, whenever you do that net shot and get away from the enemy, perfect moment to use a fireball. If you were able to land a lot of those abilities and now you have the upper hand because he didn't dodge either the splitting grenades or the Shrine Blast or the fireball, whenever you did that net shot backward and you send the fireball, then you can go and reinitiate the fight with a burnout in. And what do I mean by that? So again, it's splitting grenade on the feet. I didn't mean to use that cannon blast. I fat finger. I'm really sorry. But again, you do the splitting grenades, basic attack, Shrine Blast, net shot backwards, do a fireball. If you win in the fight, then go in with a burnout and finish them off with a flamethrower, right? And that is the beauty of this build. And that's how it works from long range and close range. Again, close range, since hopefully I don't fat finger this time. So you're gonna do a Shrine Blast into basic attack, Shrine Blast, basic attack, net shot, swap to this, do a fireball, then go with a burnout in there, and then finish the enemy with a flamethrower. And as you can see, the basic attack Shrine Blast is about to come. And that right there is pretty much your 2 basic rotations for this build. This build is insanely good still. It's very powerful if utilized in the right rotation. It's in the right hands. Don't forget that this build will be getting nerfed in a little bit from now. Before Season 5 or by Season 5, both the Fireball and the Flamethrower will be getting nerfed. Whenever that happens, please make sure to drop by my stream so I can tell you guys exactly how this build is going to be played, or just the Fire Stab in general. That was it for me. Once again, if you guys watch all the way into the end and you still enjoy this content and you got something from this video, please don't forget to sub. Come on, it's a help me help you situation. You know, we gotta go back and forth. Anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you guys dominated Turnum with this top 3 mages build that I gave you guys. Have fun, and if you guys have any questions or concern about this build, don't forget to leave a comment on the comment section down below, or just go ahead and go to my stream where I stream pretty much every single day, and you can find me live over there. Other than that, have a great New Year's, and bye-bye!